Welcome to HFY Stories. Please subscribe to the channel. Your one click means the world to me. 6 armored figures filled the corridor, and the air around them had turned into something closer to soup than atmosphere. On the bridge display, the oxygen readout kept sliding downward, 19%, 17, 15, while the temperature gauge climbed the other way. Vithral watched both numbers move like two halves of the same held breath, 4 eyes fixed on the screen, all 6 limbs frozen against the console. Somewhere past that door, one human stood between the singing prosperity and a slave auction on wrath. She hadn't drawn a weapon yet. It hadn't started that way. Half a year earlier, Vithral had known Jaime Ortega only as the new security officer who ran her drills on schedule and spoke to the ship's Kixari observer with something that almost passed for warmth. Captain Relic had waved off every concern about hiring a human. Pirates don't care about your diplomatic credentials. Vec, they care about someone who can actually fight. And for 6 months Jaime had proven him right without raising her voice once. Then came Terminus 7, and a Kravik trader named Mox Grinder who decided, mid-handshake, that the contract price had shifted downward by a third. Vithral had checked the market records that morning and found nothing of the sort. Mox's 12 armed associates found the objection very funny. Jaime hadn't laughed. She'd walked to the cargo crates, unscrewed a support leg from one, tested its weight, and offered a wager instead of a war. Single combat, full payment plus a penalty if she won, the silk free if she didn't. Mox, 7 feet of reinforced bone and bad cologne, accepted, delighted at the joke of it. He swung first and hit air. She was already inside his reach, and the alloy leg connected with his knee like a struck bell. He kept coming anyway, because that was the only thing Kravik knew how to do, and she kept meeting him wrist, shoulder, a last strike to the ribs that folded him against a container. "You cheat," he'd wheezed. "I plan," she told him, and helped him back to his feet afterward, because nothing said she couldn't. Vithral had spent that evening searching 17 treaty articles for something she'd broken. There was nothing to find. A chair leg wasn't a weapon under any definition the council had written. It was furniture. That was the report Vithral had been drafting, half in awe and half in dread, when the raider ship Bleeding Fang dropped out of the Kelly's Nebula's sensor haze and matched their speed. Its captain called himself Skaex, scales running an angry crimson across the viewscreen. He wanted the medical cargo bound for Verdant Hope. Then, almost offhand, he wanted crew as well, humans especially, he'd heard, sold well on Wrath. Relic tried humanitarian statutes. Skaex laughed at every one of them. James' hands stopped moving on the console the instant the word slavery left his mouth. "Captain," she said, "I need to run something. Now." Relic hesitated. They were outgunned, plasma cannons against cargo crates and stubbornness. But she was already moving before he finished nodding. She had Vithral pull the environmental controls, had Flip watching the Fang's power readings, had Qualix sealing the bridge behind its reinforced doors. Then she laid out shock batons and foam canisters down the boarding corridor like place settings, and told Vithral exactly what she needed. Oxygen down to 15%, carbon dioxide up, heat past 35 degrees. Nothing lethal, just cruel enough for a species built for cold, clean air. "This feels like a great deal of preparation," Vithral said. "A fair fight means I didn't plan hard enough," Jaime answered, and went to wait at the far end of the corridor with empty hands. The airlock blew inward. 6 Vascari in combat plates swept through and found one small human standing loose and pleasant in the open space beyond, nothing in her hands at all. Their leader raised his rifle. "Stand down or die here." "Bad timing," James said. "We're not really receiving guests today." She touched her wrist unit, and the corridor thickened around them, scales flickering panicked blue-green, breath turning ragged, a shot going wide because the hand behind it had already slowed. "My home planet trained me for this," she said, almost kindly, and then 6 flash charges went off together, tuned exactly to Vascari eyes. What happened next took under half a minute, and Vithral watched every second of it through the corridor feed with all 4 eyes wide open. She didn't strike the armor. Armor doesn't feel knuckles. She caught a rifle at an angle no engineer would sanction, and used the raider's own weight to put him into a bulkhead. She found the gap between helmet and collar with a baton before the second one finished his swing. She sprayed foam across two more mid-charge and left them tangled in their own gear. Let a fifth run 3 steps toward the airlock before the magnetized deck plating she'd switched on caught his boots and dropped him face first. That left the one with rank markings, scales gone black with fury, rifle somehow still level. "You're finished," he snarled. "Scaex will turn this whole ship to ash." "Maybe," she said, "but you won't be here to see it." He fired at the space she'd already left. She was inside his guard before the bolt cleared the corridor, and her baton found his knee, and then there were 6 restrained bodies on the deck, and one human breathing hard but steady, restoring the air behind her like she was straightening a room after a party. She opened the channel herself. Scaex's confidence lasted exactly as long as it took him to see his boarding team stacked against the wall behind her. "James," she said, "head of security, your people ran into some trouble in there. I'm very hands-on about uninvited company." His scales cycled through rage before settling into something colder, more calculating. He promised her a slow death, legends of her suffering. She let him talk himself out. "Here's what actually happens," she said. "You cut your engines. You call your shuttles home. You leave this sector and don't come back to it. If you're smart, I never send enforcement the recording of you offering to auction my crew on Roth. That's a life term in most systems I know of. Your 6 friends here have DNA in 40 different databases and bounties I haven't even checked yet. It's your month to decide how expensive that gets." The silence ran long enough that Vithral counted heartbeats, their own, hammering in all 4 chambers. Then the bleeding Fang's weapons lock disengaged, and the ship turned and ran, and did not come back. "You bluffed him," Relic said afterward, arriving on the bridge still pale under his scales. "You would never have hurt those 6. "Didn't need to," James said, coiling a length of restraint cord around her forearm. "He didn't know that." Vithral found her later in the cramped gym, working through a slow sequence of strikes against nothing, sweat dark at her collar. "The Council will be afraid of your species now," Vithral said. "I have already begun drafting the language for it." "Good," James said, not stopping. "Fear keeps people polite." She caught Vithral watching the shape of her stance and waved them over without breaking rhythm. "Feet wider. You're built like a table, use it. Weight low, hands up, don't apologize for taking up space." Vithral set down 4 limbs into something approximating the position, wobbling, and Jame reached over and nudged 1 knee half an inch with her foot until the stance held. "Better," she said. "Again."